Hi, friends. It's a Friday. We survived another week in quarantine. Kudos to all of you. Let's get to know some of our other candidates here. Aisha, since you are first on my screen, do you mind starting?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces here. My name is Aisha Noble, and I am a parent at Peirce. I'm a candidate running for LSC. And prior to this election cycle, I was a community rep at Peirce until August of this year when our oldest enrolled in kindergarten, which required me to step down as community rep. But I'm really excited to be running again and to see all these fresh faces and perspectives that are running too.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Granicki. I am running for community rep. I'm sitting on the LSC. I joined in September to finish out this last term, and I'm running to continue on for the next full term. I am born and raised in Chicago. My neighbor jokes that I'm a townie. I grew up just down the street at Clark and Montrose. I swear I got out of town for a little while, but I'm back. And I'm third generation in the Chicago public school system. My grandpa and I both went to the same high school actually in Chicago. I've been working on social justice issues and work on Chicago for about 2 decades, for my entire career. Right now I work at a study abroad organization where I work with HBCUs and HSIs to get underrepresented students on study abroad programs. So I'm excited to be here and thrilled to be serving on the LSC.
Okay, Melanie, I know you are multitasking, including feeding a baby, but do you want to give us an intro of who you are?
My daughter Jane is in kindergarten at Peirce. She went to pre-K there last year, so it's our second year there. I have been a teacher, an elementary teacher for the past 12 years. I'm not teaching this school year. Or I haven't been teaching since being home, since Ben was born a year ago. So that's the big thing I think that made me want to serve on the LSC, is just my knowledge kind of how schools work, and then being there to bring the kind of teacher parent perspective. I know there's teachers and there's parents, but just bridge that, I guess, and know what's feasible in schools and what kind of changes can be made. And I'm super passionate about racial equity and in public schools and public education in general, just supporting public schools, investing in public schools with our children and our time. We literally live across the street from Peirce. We can see it from our window. And we've been waiting to join the community since we moved here 5 years ago. So we are excited.
So Javi, since you got my attention, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
We've been in Chicago about 13 years. Daughters are Hazel and Eleanor in 4th grade and kindergarten. I am involved because I had a realization over the past year that I was going to become a single issue voter. And the thing that was the most important to me was racial equity and being anti-racist and voting for anti-racist candidates. And I think that if there is an elected who, as much as you like them and as much as you agree with them, that if on that one issue, they were not going to take the right votes and push that issue forward, then I was not going to vote for them. And as I said in my Facebook post, that sometimes it means supporting those people and sometimes it means being that person. So that's why I'm running for the LSC.
Okay, Claire, you're next on my list.
Okay, my horoscope told me not to monologue today, so I'm a little nervous about this. But I'm Claire Gervasi, they, them. I'm running as a parent rep also. So my background is in education. I taught in higher ed for a long time as a Spanish instructor. And then after having my own child, who is now 10, I discovered Montessori and drank that Kool-Aid and became a Montessori preschool teacher. So that's what I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years. I also worked briefly in children's services at the public library. And that's, so I've spent a lot of time as an educator, and I come to this as a parent, but with an educator perspective, like Melanie, and am very passionate, like Hobby, about racial equity. And I really like what you said, Hobby, that like being a single issue voter on that particular issue is of paramount importance to me as well. I also have done a lot of unpaid work as a anti-racist activist, but also a trans rights activist, and have done a lot of advocacy for trans and gender nonconforming youth in Kentucky, where I come from. I've lived in Chicago for a year and a half. This is our second school year at Peirce, and my son is in 4th grade.
Awesome, thank you. Matthew, do you have a drink, and are you ready to introduce yourself, my friend?
So thank you all. It's great to see all these wonderful faces. I think we've spoken before with most of you. Again, delighted to be here. I'm Matthew Kwame. I have lived in Chicago for the past 19 years. Before that, I went to school in the great state of Indiana. And before that, I was in the Ivory Coast, and that's where I was born and raised. And so, you know, it's interesting because I take a look at, you know, the full list of people on the chat here. And, you know, we always talk about diversity and racial equity and everything. And this group cannot be more of a testament to that. And, you know, this is what kind of gets me going. This is one of the reasons why I want to run to be on that on the LSC, because every time I come to the LSC, every time wherever I walk, I'd like that to be representative of what I see every day. And it's not it's not a buzz. Again, if you take a look at the list of participants, you put that, you know, you make it a big, you know, what do you call it? The view when you see everyone. That's what I'd like to see. You know, I know that the LSC has done some good things over the past couple of years. I think that we can make it better, and that's why I'm running.
Awesome. My first question was, why are local school councils important? Why is this an important race?
They're important because local school councils, you know, that's the concentration of power, right? You know, local school councils make decisions as they relate to budgets of school, evaluating the principal, and based on the continuous improvement work plan program. This is the pandemic setting in on my acronyms, but you know, they're the kind of the keepers of power at each school, and they are elected by parents and the community. So, and you know, what we want, what we're working towards, what I'm focused on is making sure that, you know, I'm representing the views and the concerns of our community and our parent community and our students. But that's why local school councils are so important. In particular, that, you know, there's representation, because historically that's kind of shifted where we're not seeing many people of color running for LSC, but, you know, we see a great rainbow and representation here. So that's why it's important we have people advocating for our students and for our teachers and for our schools.
Yeah, I would just add that it's an imperfect system, but it's all we've got. And the only way to improve it is to participate. Without an elected school board, you know, these are our only elected officials representing our community, representing our parents. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with it. And the more people that participate, the more diverse perspectives that we bring to the LSC, the stronger our schools are.
So I wanted to ask the candidates, what is something you feel the Peirce community does really well that you want to highlight and talk about, and that like gives you life right now?
Yeah, I still feel like a newcomer to the Peirce community, but the thing that gives me life at Peirce are the parents. Feeling, I've met so many amazing people who are raising amazing humans. And I have been so inspired by, I mean, obviously everybody here goes without saying, but I will continue to say. But also, just a lot of other parents that I know who have just picked up all of the pieces of the pandemic and have just supported each other, and are continuing to grow and in ways to support each other and the whole Peirce community through this unprecedented time. It's, I mean, the creativity, the inventiveness, the persistence in problem solving is just, it blows my mind, because I so many good ideas, things that I never could have possibly thought of, and everybody's just doing more than pulling their weight, and it's amazing. So it's the parents for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think in addition to what Claire said, I think that one of the things that we've always appreciated is that people show up, right? Whatever event it is, whatever reason, we did, Rebecca and some of the other parents, during the strike, did a lot of coordinating around, helping, students, or I mean, teachers with food and whatever the case, whatever they needed. We did a couple of other things like that too with, an organization that I volunteer with, where we collect food from like Whole Foods and places like that, and then we distribute it. People are always, they show up, and I think that's very important. I think, and sorry, maybe I'm also answering another question, is, we can continue improving on that and make that, everyone. One of the things that I love that we see a lot of people. I want to see a lot of more people, right? Other people, right? Like all of us here, like we know each other. We've seen some parents that there's a core. I think it's something that I would like definitely to expand, and that's my idea of inclusion. Like we talk about diversity and inclusion. The inclusion piece is difficult, and for whatever reason, but I think it's possible. At least we can try, and let's see how we can measure that.
Yeah, I think I think it's a bit of a loaded question, because it's like we can talk about all the things that Peirce does well. I mean, yeah, you're setting us up. That's what I'm saying. Now, it's a loaded question, because it's not a question of what Peirce does well, but that do they do well for everybody. So like the Hazel has really she's very successful, and Peirce is working well for her. It's working well for me, for my friends, for the people that I know, for the people who are visible. But the truth is that there's so many more families that it should be working as well for. I think that's, yeah, we want what we have here and amongst the friends that we have for everybody.
So I'm one of these crazy people that I toured 13 CPS schools and decided I didn't want to do the magnet school thing. I didn't want to do the selective enrollment thing. I wanted a great neighborhood school, and I wanted a diverse neighborhood school for my daughter, and someplace that was comfortable for my family. And where I grew up, not far from here, has just changed so much that I don't recognize it anymore. It's not the place I grew up in anymore, and it wasn't welcoming for my family. So what we love about Edgewater and what we love about Peirce, it's kind of almost me like trying to recreate my childhood for my daughter, and kind of what we had in Chicago decades ago. And we were attracted to Peirce. I mean, it's a great school. The community's fantastic. The kind of what sealed the deal for us is my husband's from India, born and raised, and we saw that there was a group of Peirce students performing at the Holy Festival at Navy Pier. And so honestly, like that is why we packed up our bags and moved here. And we're really excited to send our daughter to Peirce in 2 years when she starts kindergarten.
I was out with the kids during the strike with the teachers, and just the outpouring of love from the community for the teachers and vice versa. It was wonderful just to be kind of basking in that love. And we weren't even officially a family. I was just there, you know, to show up as a community rep and support the teachers. But
So Rebecca would like to know, what are some of the first steps that you will take as a representative on our LSC?
Yeah, so one of the things that I really like to do is measure things. So, you know, trends or, you know, I know that so specifically the LSC has come up with a lot of initiatives, especially on racial equity and the like. So the idea is to figure out, okay, well, here are the suggestions or the what do you call it? The recommendations that were made from the different groups and committees that were put together. Where are we on those? And where do we want to go? I mean, you know, so sometimes, you know, some of those goals can be bold, sometimes they can be too basic. And until we measure it, so like, you know, if they come and say, well, you know, we have like 14 resolutions or recommendations and they were all implemented, great. Well, does that mean that we're too simple? Did we not get to the root of the problem? So, you know, that's the first thing. I like to know where we are. You know, just so maybe like an inventory of the of things that need to happen and how we get there, and you know, having, you know, milestones on how to, you know, it's just not enough to meet every month and say this is what we did last month. Fine, but where are we going and how do we keep track of our progress there? I think that's really one of the things that, you know, we really need to get to, because we then well, that allows us to identify gaps and then work on those gaps.
and I agree with everything that Matthew shared. Some of the, I've been kind of doodling on this too, you know, some of the first things to kind of, I want to take a couple of steps back personally to kind of look back at, you know, previous years of LSC, you know, looking over previous survey data, just feedback from the community, from the parents, you know, in that annual survey, for the folks that Freeform responded, to kind of dig into, you know, what are we doing well at the school and where are opportunities for improvement. I want to dig into some of the kind of recurring thing about transparency around, you know, access to recorded meetings, to, you know, any documents related to the LSC, and make sure that everything is up that should be up, kind of year-to-date stuff that's relevant to our community and important for them to have access to. Really kind of digging further into, you know, our curriculum, and ensuring that it's continues to be culturally responsive. A lot of the folks in our call know that I'm involved in the Racial Equity Parents Group, and that's work that I'm already involved in, but digging further into that from an LSC perspective, and as that relates to our school leadership, and making sure that, you know, we're kind of firing all cylinders for our students. And also hiring is really important for a whole host of reasons. I don't have to explain to the folks here, but it's important that, you know, our staff is representative of our community. And there's plenty of research that supports having teaching staff that reflects, you know, our community, representation of teachers from Black and Brown communities in particular, isn't just a benefit to students of color, but is also a benefit to, you know, the rest of our community, our white community as well. And then also something that continues to come up in our community is just ensuring that there's sufficient funding for translation services. I want to dig into that and also make sure that we have really deeper roots as it relates kind of to our bilingual community, and ensure that they're seeing themselves represented and invited to have conversations, that they're part of the community and they can participate in a meaningful way.
The first thing that I did when I joined the LSC in September is have a meeting with Principal Zaimi. I'm sure she'll do the same with everybody who joins in January. And the topic that I wanted to talk to her about is the reason that I'm running for LSC, and I ran a few months ago, was our equity score that I just found online when I'm doing research on all these schools. Originally, I almost didn't even go on the Peirce parent tour because the equity score was the worst that I had seen of all the schools that I visited. After we did decide to move here, and I started looking at did join the LSC and looked at other schools in the area, it's actually the worst of all the schools in the area too. So there's a lot of excuses I think that can be made for our equity score. And I think a lot of times people will point to the diversity and say, well, you know, it's a challenge. And I'm here to say it doesn't have to be that way. It is a challenge, of course, but you can't tell me it can't be done, because there are schools that are just as diverse as ours. The magnet school I went to, Hawthorne, Stone, we have an alum from Stone here too. The equity scores there are 8 out of 10. Peirce is a 3 out of 10. I just looked up Gowdy, 5 out of 10. So, you know, Gowdy's doing better than us. All of our schools in our ward actually have a better score. So essentially, you know, you can make this strong. What that's saying is that there's a strong correlation between a student's race and their test scores at Peirce, and it shouldn't be that way. So I talked to Principal Zaimi about that and realized that she's got the data. You know, online you can find our growth and our achievement data, but she has that divided by race, and that, as far as I know, has not been shared. So what I'd like to do is make this a regular, you know, agenda item on the LSC meetings where this gets shared regularly, so we can track and use that as a metric for improving. Because she pulled up one example and showed me that our 5th grade math students it was our white and Asian students were growing at like 95%, and our Latinx students were growing at 55%. So the discrepancies here are huge. So that's why I'm here, and that's what I want to draw attention to, kind of each step of the way at every point that I can. One other quick thing too is just kind of the HR process at Peirce and at CPS. I find a little troubling that we ask our principals to be HR directors, and they don't really have experience in that area. So when it comes to hiring diverse staff, you hear a lot of excuses that you hear from like your white male, CEOs. Oh, there's not the candidates there. And, there are, and there's strategies for reaching those candidates. And it's a matter of connecting Peirce with those resources to show us how to do that. Because, our principal's not an HR director and not a diversity, recruitment expert. So we need outside help in that area.
Thanks, Nicole. That was really enlightening. I had no idea about that, and I'm guessing lots of our community doesn't. Community members, thank you so much for being here. The people that were just with us to hang out, we really appreciate you.